We've scaled multiple offers to 500K per month, and our biggest lever was hiring the right setters and closers. In this episode, we're going to go through everything you need to know about hiring and managing a top performing elite sales team. So if you continue want to just go through burning through sales reps and through setters, you won't want to miss this episode. Welcome to the third episode in the Two Bearded Info Guys podcast, where we talk about everything related to scaling high ticket offers to multiple six figures per month, up to $750,000 per month in cash collected. And in this episode, we're going through a lot about building an elite performing sales team. So that's setters and closers. It's going to be a juicy topic. We're going to go through a lot of tactical advice. I know the previous two were more strategic. This is going to be like in the weeds, tactical strategy to really build out a top performing sales team. So I think a good place for us to start is we've seen so many different offers that where we jump in, it comes with pre-existing setters and closers, and we kind of inherit that team, and then we have to figure out how to manage them, what to do with them, and so on. What are some mistakes that you've seen going into offers where there's already been setters and closers in place, and you just think to yourself, I've got a lot of work to do here?
Yeah, that is an incredible question because if you inherit a sales team, right? Or actually, if you are a business owner and you've had a sales team for a very long time, you start to develop tunnel vision, right? You don't even realize what issues you have with your sales team. When you inherit a team, you're also inheriting what I like to call the sins of the fathers, right? The bad behaviors, the bad acting agents within the sales team, right? The negative attitudes, the low morale. So inheriting a sales team, in my opinion, is a lot harder than actually building a sales team. The first thing that I always look at, before anything else, I don't even care about the data, is what does the culture look like? I know we touched on this on the last episode, but for me, this is the most important thing that I need to figure out the second I bring on a team, or second I inherit a team, is what does the culture look like? Are people bought into the offer? Do people have conviction? Do people follow the SOPs? Do people hit KPIs? Do people show up to trainings, group calls? Are people engaging? Does it actually feel like a team? Because one misconception that a lot of people have when running a business is they think that having an X amount of people on the team makes it a team. But it's not by the number of people that you have, it's by how they engage with each other. Because you can have two people, but if they're super locked in together, they have very good chemistry, that is a much more efficient team than having 10 people that never communicate or hype each other up. So the first thing I want to look at is literally what does the culture look like and how does the team interact with each other?
Yeah. And we've seen this as well. Like when we're managing sales teams and the closers are friends and the closers help each other out, there's so much that comes out of it from a morale perspective. So if someone's having a bad day, it's like, hey man, listen, I'm gonna show you how to handle this objection. I'll show you a call recording I've had. Check this out. It might help you.
Yeah.
And everyone's kind of trying to support one another. But that's not just the only benefit you get out of it. When people need someone to step in, so like, let's say there's a call running over, or they're about to miss a call. It's like everyone just on the same page. It's like, bro, I'll jump in. I got this call. It's like, okay, you'll take this call after that. And so like you don't get a culture where everyone's like siloed. No one speaks to each other. No one's able to role play with each other or bounce ideas off each other. And it's literally just individuals taking calls and that's it.
The situation is just you and your boys making money. Like
It's the best
chat,
feeling.
bro, the Slack group chat.
When we've got a good sales team and everyone is just like making money and like you just see Slack notifications go off and just everyone's in such a good environment. And I think a good example of it is like imagine like you've just finished like a sports tournament and you've come into first place. What's that energy that each player has? And imagine now that energy that each player has now goes and communicates to the stand and the audience like, hey guys, like this is what we've done. Like the conviction coming out of them is so much different than if they're just like in their own world and they're like, yeah, I guess, like what got you interested in this call? What are you hoping to get out of it? What are some challenges you face? It's very different. It's very different.
The team huddle, when you have a good culture, the team huddles that we have literally feels like a Black Ops lobby.
It's the highlight, bro. It's the war room. Literally. It's like just before you get into like, it's just team morale's on a different level, especially when we're launching webinars.
100%.
Just the hype leading up to it is next level.
Yeah.
So culture is a big point. Now, let's say you're building a team from scratch. What are some things you look for when hiring setters and closers? We'll start off with setters first and then kind of jump into the closers.
That is a great question. So when it comes to setters, my hiring criteria is a lot more different than hiring closers. So for setters, I'm a lot less picky when it comes to skill level.
Hmm.
I don't mind someone. In fact, my favorite setter to hire is someone that doesn't have a lot of experience. The reason why I say this is because when you hire someone, or a setter to be more specific, who has a lot of experience, almost always they want to become a closer. So the churn rate is very high, unless they're making a lot of money on the offer, like 8 to 10K, which is very rare. So I love hiring people that don't have a lot of sales experience, but they're super hungry. Because that is someone that I can coach up very quickly, like a week max, maybe 2 weeks tops to get them like very, very dialed in. And they will be incredibly loyal to. Like, for example, I just hired a guy for an offer that I'm managing. The guy has zero sales experience. The guy graduated high school like a month ago, right? But he was so hungry. He doesn't want to go into the 9 to 5. He wants to leave his small town, move into a big city. I'm like, listen, bro, I will teach you everything you need to know. I just need to make sure you're committed. The guy works 7 days a week, does over $150 every single day, puts up more sets than anyone. Sometimes the sets need a bit of coaching, which is fine. But he is my highest producing employee by far. So when it comes to hiring setters, to answer your question, I need someone who's incredibly hungry, incredibly coachable, and just willing to put out insane volume.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting you say that, have less experience, because we've seen it as well. Sometimes you'll bring on a setter that's been trained by someone else in terms of how to set, and they're just like married to that process. And they're so uncoachable. And that's the biggest thing, just coachability. You'll find that people normally, if they're coming in with a blank slate, they'll receive everything, they'll get feedback, and they'll implement it. Those that have already been trained and they feel like they know everything, but their income doesn't reflect what they feel, sometimes you have to force them, and it's hard. And at that point, it's like there's not much you can do.
Yeah, and if you are a business owner and you literally hate making money, please stop hiring from these random sales coaches. Like, bro, the amount of people I've interviewed who've come from these random sales coaches that you see on Instagram, who have like 2,000 followers, the reps are literally horrible. The worst reps I've ever seen in my life. And they're like, oh, but I got my certification from...
Yeah, and
Who the hell is this guy?
they've been programmed to sell a certain way. So now to reprogram their mind.
I literally interviewed a seller the other day who graduated from like this female sales academy. Some of these female coaches, by the way, are really, really good. Right, but this specific one was probably the worst I've ever seen. And she had literally, I think, 6 days of actual sales experience. I think she made a total of like $150 in her life. And she was a coach in that program. So that just shows you the state of the industry and the people that you're hiring from. So if you literally do not want to make money, keep hiring from those people. But if you do want to actually start making money and scaling your business, start looking for proper talent, which, like we said, for setters are people that are hungry, they're coachable, and it's okay if they don't have experience. But that's for setters. With closers, it's very different. Because with setters, their job isn't incredibly difficult. Right? You can teach them most of the stuff within a week or two. When it comes to closers, because there's so many parts of the closing call, because there's so much that goes into it, and there's so much that they need to know, I'm only looking for the best of the best. Maybe depending on the offer, I can hire someone that's decent and invest a lot of time and coach them up. But right away, I just want to hire like a plug and play type closer. I want to place you, teach you as much as possible about the offer, get you bought into the offer, and then just have you go live.
Much easier. If you're able to get a closer that knows the skill of sales, knows how to run discovery, knows how to pitch, knows how to handle objections, they've got that there. All you need to really train them on is the offer. Give them that conviction. Show them that this is an offer and really sell them on being a closer. Because again, if they're a good closer, they get bombarded with different offers.
100%.
And it's like, why should they close for you versus someone else?
100%. So if you are looking to hire, to summarize, for setters, get someone coachable and hungry, who preferably actually doesn't have a lot of experience. For closers, get A-level players and make sure they're compensated well. Get them bought into the offer and just have them go live.
Absolutely. And we'll talk on compensation, but I guess before we jump into that, a point I really, really want to discuss, because I've seen so many offers literally die because of this one mistake. And the single mistake that I see is hiring too many sales reps, hiring too many closers, or hiring too many setters. And that's literally the fastest way to kill a business, is to overhire, not factor in the lead generation that you're getting. And literally overnight, your top closers are looking for better offers. Your top setters look for better offers because they get no leads. No one's making money. And literally, I've seen businesses go from making $400,000 or $500,000 a month to zero because everyone quits. What are some things that we look at as well when looking to hire the number of setters and closers?
Yeah. And before I answer that, I just want to say something to all the business owners. So if you're a business owner and you want to make a lot more money, do it slowly. Because a lot of these business owners, the second they start hitting 100K, 200K per month, they go crazy. They've never touched this money before. Now they just want to stuff the sales team with as many reps as possible and think of like, how do I grow as fast as possible? And what ends up happening is, like you said, they overhire, no one's making money, everyone's morale drops, everyone quits, now you're back to zero.
Yeah.
So if you want to make the most money as fast as possible, do it slowly, right? And grow sustainably. But to answer your question, right, when it comes to hiring reps, it really depends on, in my opinion, the lead generation. How many leads are you getting, right? Obviously, everyone has revenue targets in mind that they want to hit, but ultimately, your biggest bottleneck is going to be how many leads you're getting. And that's something that we touched on in one of the previous episodes, which if you haven't watched already, I would highly recommend checking it out, which was the first episode, which is the funnel and the metrics and how
Yeah.
they
No one does math.
No one wants to do it.
Everyone's working off vibes. It's like, you know what? We made 100K. I think we need the second closer. I think we need the third setter. I think, and like, then you're giving false OTE because that OTE is not realistic. That OTE was realistic when you had one closer, but now that you have a second closer, that OTE most likely is going to have, assuming lead generation stays the same. But what if you overhire on the setters and now 3 setters quit? Now that OTE for everyone shrinks. And it's like, do the math. It's like, look at the numbers and just run the math.
Yeah, if you want to figure out exactly how many people to hire, just look at the data. How many leads are you getting? Right? How many setters do you have? How many sets is each setter getting on average? Right? From those sets, how many of them are showing up? Right? That means every close is going to take X amount of calls from those sets. So that tells you, just from the number of leads that you're getting, how many setters you should hire to fill X amount of closes counters.
Exactly. It all starts off with the number of leads.
100%.
And I think let's like in terms of like tangible ratios. Now, obviously, it'll depend from offer to offer, but on average, how many setters per number of leads? Like if we have, let's say, 1,000 leads a month, which isn't an insane amount. But if we have 1,000 leads per month, generally speaking, how many setters do we need?
So let's just say per day, just to make it simpler. Let's say 100 leads per day. Depending on the offer and how many sets we're getting per day, I would either divide that by 5 or 10. If you're getting 100 leads per day, right? If you're getting a lot of confirmations and sets per setter, I would hire 5 setters. If you're not getting a ton of sets, I would hire 10 setters divided by 10. That's usually the number that I've found works best with most offers, including offers where we've had over 100 setters. That was the math that we ran.
And it's with that now, that bases off their OTE. That tells you how many sets you're going to have. And now you know what to set their KPIs on.
Exactly. Because people just set KPIs just for the sake of setting KPIs. They're like, oh, I just want my sellers to book 12 calls per day. No one set more than 4 calls in the existence of the offer.
Yeah.
So like, but I wanted to set more, but like that's not how it works.
Yeah.
You need to look at the data. That's why we keep bringing up the data, because that is the thing that's going to help you determine everything that you need about the offer and where you're trying to go with it.
Yeah. And there's a whole calculation behind it, because it's not just enough to know how many setters you need. You also need to know what's a realistic OTE. And that OTE really, really comes down to a couple things. Obviously, what the closers are closing, but secondly, they're just the price of the offer.
Yeah.
If you're selling an offer for $2,000, like the setter's OTE isn't going to really be anywhere above like 3-4K. Just depending on the volume you sell.
Yeah.
So sometimes when you just run the math, maybe it makes sense to charge higher. Sometimes you do have to charge more to be able to retain setters and keep them, along with hiring them, because OT is a big factor. And we've seen so many offer owners put like a hypothetical OTE, setter joins in, and they're like, yo, I thought I was going to make 4 to 5K from this.
Like
and they end up making like, $1,000 or $200 in commissions. And now, so from a setting perspective, it really comes down to the leads. So divide by 5, divide by 10 in terms of leads per day. And now you know how many setters you have. But before you do that division, you want to take an average. You don't want to have one good day and say, okay, this is the number of leads we get per day, so I need 5 setters. It's like, look at your trailing 30 days. If you don't have that much data, look at your last 7 days, look at your last 14 days. Look as much of a time frame you can. Look at the average of leads that you get per day. And from that, divide it by 5. While you divide by 5, you might think, okay, that's not enough. Well, each lead, if you're doing this properly, gets dialed how many times?
So one thing that we focus a lot on with our offers that we manage is dials per lead. And the reason why we focus, just to give you guys some context, because that's been the biggest needle mover when it comes to ROAS, right? So for example, just for more context, we had one offer that we were managing. It was at, I think, like a 2.5x ROAS, which is honestly not that good, right? The only thing that we changed, literally the one thing that we changed, was we changed the number of dials per lead. It went from, I think, 6 dials per lead to 14. ROAS went from 2.5x to 7. That was the only thing that we changed. We just called them more.
How many times were you calling them?
Each lead was getting hit up like 14 to 16 times.
And that's funny because sometimes when you say this to people, it's like, oh, I called the leads. How many times did you call them? Call them twice.
That's it.
And that's it. And then they're like, oh, but I don't know why they're not showing up. These leads are dead. They don't respond. Or like, oh, my leads are all giving fake numbers. It's like, no, you're not hitting them with enough frequency. Now you might say like, oh, am I not overstepping? They filled out that form to reach out. They watched the VSL. Now again, depending on the funnel they're coming through, whether it's a webinar, a VSL, or an opt-in, they've said, hey, contact me. Here's my number.
Yeah.
Now you want to hit them as fast as possible.
Yeah.
You want to be able to hit them. And again, we're going kind of off topic here in terms of how many to hire, but it's super important because when people look at that ratio, it's like that's 5 leads per setter. I feel like that's too little. Like,
But
can't
it's
you
not
setter?
the number of leads, it's how many dials.
It's how many dials.
Yeah.
Because some might say like, oh, if I'm getting 100 leads, I need 2 setters max. I'm like,
Yeah.
are those 2 setters going to call each of them 15 times?
Yeah. In
Answer's
fact,
probably
I
no.
want to share something with you guys. The way that I gauge if my setting team is performing is if I'm seeing messages from the leads asking us to stop calling them so much.
That's it.
That is the most important metric for me. Are the leads getting frustrated with how many times we're contacting them? Because even though it might seem like a bad sign for most business owners, like, oh, we're harassing these people, which obviously you never want to harass them. But that just shows you they're getting hit up so much and you're getting enough bookings from that.
Yeah. And this is another topic that we can go into so much
Yeah.
detail in terms of setter best practices and whatnot. For the sake of the podcast, I know we're about 15 minutes in and we try to keep these under 30 minutes long.
Yeah.
It's time for our halftime break. Big thank you once again to our sponsors, VC Growth. Now, big thank you to them. Now, if you don't know who VC Growth is, they are a marketing and sales agency that work with high ticket offers, scaling them up to 500, 700K per month. If you are interested in, we actually run the company. Click the link in the description. You'll find an application to learn more about us. Apply. We are happy to discuss whether or not it would be a good fit for us to help you scale your offer to $500,000-$700,000 per month. With that being said, back to the program. So we talked a bit about setters and how to hire them. Now, that could be a big best practice. In terms of closers, let's touch a bit about how many closers to bring on and when to kind of gauge when you need to start training and hiring. And one really important thing is always having sales reps in the pipeline. So you never want to hire from a perspective of need, out of necessity, because then you make so many different bad decisions because you're like, oh, we need to hire yesterday, get the first person, throw them on the calendar, and you never want to do that. So how many closers should we actually be hiring?
That's another great question. And one of the biggest mistakes, and this might seem contradictory, but the fastest way to lose money when it comes to hiring closers is actually packing your closers calendars too much. So most business owners, when they have a closer, and let's say they have 10 slots open, they just want to make sure that closer is taking 10 calls per day. I don't want that to happen. Because if you have, let's say, 3 closers, all 3 of them have a packed calendar, you're not able to book any more calls in. So you are actually losing money because the other leads that could have been booked in have nowhere to go. So what I like to aim for is having a 70 to 80% fill rate.
Yeah.
So my closers are still taking enough calls, they're still making good money, but they're not booked to the point where I feel like we don't have enough spots anymore.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. It's almost like it's a dance. You're always trying to balance it. As leads are increasing, you're ramping up setters, they're booking more. You never want setters to book at 100% utilization because at that case, it's like they could be booking more and all those leads are just in limbo. You're losing them. So you're burning ads, you're burning on like whatever the organic post strategy is. You always want to have like you said, like at 70, 80% utilization, because then it's like, okay, once we hit that, now we know we need to bring on someone else.
The setters get frustrated as well. It actually destroys setter morale because they're on the phone with a hot lead. Because keep in mind, setters only get paid if the closer takes and closes the call. So they're on the phone, hot lead, has money. They check the calendar, no slots open. They're like, why am I even putting in the work? No one's going to take my call. So they start dialing less. Now the setters are dialing less. But if they're dialing less, they're booking less. The closers are taking less calls. They're closing less calls. Now you're making less money.
Exactly. And that's why you need a team that is really able to forecast, not just revenue, but forecast the number of setters you need, the number of closures you need. Because as you're scaling ads or as you're getting more lead flow, you need to make sure that the setters have calendars to book on, the closers have capacity, so that they're not getting burnt out, but you're getting more closures in. And most importantly, you're not hiring too fast so that the OTE you promised them is actually the OTE that they get. And then you don't get to a point where you overhire sales rep, utilization goes down to 30%. Now closers are complaining that they're not getting enough booked calls on their calendar. And now you start to get your top closers start to look for other offers because they were used to making 15K per month. Now they're making 5K per month. They're closing, nothing's changed on their side. They're just getting less calls on their calendar. And now they're like, listen, this doesn't make sense for me. I need to find something else.
So to answer your question with regards to how many closers you want to hire, it really just depends. How many calls are your setters booking in? How many setters do you have, right? And how many calls can you book into the closers' calendars to the point where you can fill them up to 70 to 80%?
Yeah, and you're just aiming for that target. As long as you're in that 70 to 80% utilization, then you're in a good spot. If you go below that, okay, well now you don't want to hire closers. You want to get enough setters on. If you go above that, it's like, okay, well now you've got to start looking for a next closer. And the biggest thing, and touching on hiring, is you never want to hire out of necessity.
100%.
So while you're scaling, like, and for our Slack channels, we have specific Slack channels specifically for hiring setters and hiring closers. And you're always hiring. You're always looking for talent because you want, at any point when you need to, you already have a pipeline of people you've spoken to, you've vetted, and you know are going to perform, rather than being in a position where you're like, okay, we're getting so many leads, we need a setter. Or a setter just quit. A closer just quit. We need to find someone else. And now you're scrambling to find someone, and you have to go to different groups and reach out to different people and try to find a closure, and then throw them on the calendar and hope they perform. And if they don't, it's like, okay, well, we've got to train you, but you don't want to train them on leads because you're training them on ad spend. You'd rather have them kind of plugged in, already ramped up.
And I think one of the best practices that you can have when scaling a business is always interview like you're hiring like crazy. Even if you're not hiring, you consistently want to be interviewing people. You always want to have people that you can reach out to at any second and be like, yo, we have a spot opened up. We want you on right now. Because if you, like you said, if you find yourself in that position where you need someone ASAP, you're cooked. Literally. Because now you're probably going to hire someone that's not a good fit. You're going to be losing money in the meantime because you don't have people booking calls or taking them. And it just throws off morale, because if you do hire someone that's a bad fit, now you have to offboard and then bring someone on again. And throughout the whole time period, you're just losing money. So you never want to find yourself in that position.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think those are really good things that we've discussed in terms of how to hire, what to look for in setters, what to look for in closers, and how many to hire from setters and from closers as well. Both kind of hand in hand is going to change everything. And then obviously making sure that beforehand you have a pipeline of setters, you have a pipeline of closers. You're already vetting who's going to be a good fit. And you're already looking at who's you can train up.
And I want to share a tip to anyone that's running a business that wants to hire. One of the most effective hiring techniques that I found is to ask your team itself for referrals. The reason why I bring that up is because if your closer or setter knows someone personally and they are a good fit and you bring them on, right away you have very good team chemistry. So they get along very well, it improves culture, and they work together very, very well. So right away, performance is already ramped up and they're performing very well.
And top performers know other top performers.
Exactly.
And especially if you're asking a closer for a recommendation, they're not going to refer someone bad because now they look bad. And now we'll never ask them again. So they actually go out of their way to find someone good because they want to look good. They want to be like, yo, I brought him on board and he's performing. And again, morale's good and everything's good.
100%. And another thing that I want to bring up when it comes to hiring, which is, in my opinion, the most overlooked thing that business owners completely miss out on when hiring someone, is figuring out if this person is actually bought into the offer or not. Because you might think you have a killer setter or you might have a top closer, but then you talk to them about the offer, they're like, yeah, sounds okay, sounds good. But you're like, oh, this guy can close, let me just bring him on. And then you review his calls, he's barely handling objections, he's barely pushing for the sale because he doesn't have that conviction. So one of the most important things that you want to look out for is just making sure they're also closed on the offer itself.
100%. And that brings us on to our final topic, comp plans, everyone's favorite thing to discuss. How much money is everyone making? Who's getting paid? How much are they getting paid? So we'll start off with comp plans for setters. And I know it's going to differ a lot from, is it a new offer, how well the offer is doing, bonuses, etc. But let's kind of discuss for setter comp plans. Like, what are some things that we've implemented or you've seen that kind of work really well?
Yes. So to give you guys some context before answering that question, just so you have a bit more tangible takeaways from this. If you are a new offer, the best comp plan that I've seen by far to hire for hiring setters is paying them a commission plus cash per call shown. So for example, one thing that we were struggling with on an offer that we were working with is retention for setters because it was a new launch, right? They just, there was a lot of risk for them. So one thing that we changed was going from a standard 6% commission because we wanted to overpay them a bit to actually offering them 4% commission plus $50 per every call that they booked that showed up. Just making that one change, we got so many more applicants and people were a lot more bought into the offer because they knew that even if nothing closed, they still had that protection because how are you going to have 0 calls show up?
Yeah.
Right. So if you're a new offer, I highly recommend offering commission plus cash per call shown.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point because with a new offer, if there's no cash collected, the first question your setter is going to ask you when you hire them is what's the average OT? How much has others made? And if you're brand new and you've got nothing closed, it's very scary for a setter to put their income in someone else's hands when there's no track record beforehand. Because setters only get paid if the closure closes. So when you say we'll pay you per shown call, it's like I have control over that. I can get them to show on the call. I can remind them. I'll call them before, etc. But I can't guarantee the close. So it helps them from that sense. So that's a really good point.
Yeah. Now on the flip side, if you have an established offer, you guys are making good money, you're profitable, right? There's 2 ways to go about it. If you have an incredibly strong offer, right? This is like a tier 1 level offer that everyone wants to be on. You can get away with offering standard commissions. 5% for setters, 10% for closers. You don't have to offer anything crazy. Now, if your offer is doing decent, right, but you want to attract the best talent, you need to get competitive with your comp plans, right? So one thing that we do is we offer 5% and 10%, but we offer a very strong tiered commission structure, which you're not going to find on any other offers. We have closers literally making up to 25% commissions, depending on their performance. Just because we want to retain that talent, because we know we have a decent offer, but it's not strong enough to attract like the best closers in the game.
Yeah, and the audience might think 25% commission is insane, but listen, again, do the math. Do the math. 25% commission for one closure on a specific tier, as a percentage overall, doesn't add that much. Yeah. It's not 25% off of the entire revenue that's cash collected. It's only on that tier for that specific closure. So like if let's say the company is doing 500K per month or 300K per month, that closure alone is bringing in, let's say 100K. And from that 100K, maybe, actually, let's say 150s, because generally speaking, that's when you start to add the tiers after 100. But that 150, that extra 50K that they're bringing in, it's only that's getting that percentage on. So overall, when you aggregate it, and again, it's going to differ depending on the offer price and so on, isn't actually 25%. At most, maybe it's like an extra 12%. It's 12% overall, or 10% overall.
Yeah. And another thing that I've noticed with a lot of business owners is they're afraid to pay out more. They hold on to their money as much as possible. But you're actually losing money because of that. Because again, when you are giving those tiered commission structures, right, you are incentivizing people to make you more money. So your slice might be a bit smaller, but the pie is a lot bigger.
Yeah.
So if you do want to attract the best talent, right, again, you need to get competitive with your comp.
Yeah. It's like, would you rather have 100% of a grape or 50% of a watermelon?
Exactly. So if you want the best players, you want people to make you the most amount of money, start paying them a lot more.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Amazing. Anything else you want to add from a commissions perspective?
Yeah. So when it comes to bonuses, and again, this is something that a lot of business owners mess up on. They just create random bonuses. They're like, let's just give them an extra, 2% for no reason. When it comes to bonuses, you want to be very strategic with that because a bonus acts nothing more than just an incentive. That's what a bonus is. So whatever you're trying, and again, it goes back to data.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Look at your numbers. Which numbers are your biggest bottlenecks right now? For example, everything is perfect except the show rate, right? You want to optimize for that. You want to incentivize your setters to do a better job with the show rate. What you can do is, for example, give them bonuses depending on the setter's show rate, right? If you have a 60% show rate, you get, for example, this much of a bump. If you have a 70%, this much of a bump. If you want to optimize for cash per call taken, right, the profitability that we talked about, right, you start giving bonuses based off of that. 500 cash per call taken, you get this bonus. 1,000 cash per call taken, you get this bonus. So you want to be very strategic with your bonuses because it doesn't do anything except incentivize
a behavior. Exactly. So even like with your closures, like let's say you notice that you're not getting a lot of pay in fulls. You're getting 2 pays, you're getting like installments, and it's not making sense from an advertising perspective because the ROAS is not there. You can offer bonuses for an X percentage that are pay in fulls. So if you get this many deals that are pay in fulls, you'll get a specific bonus. And again, for the exact amount to be bonused, it really depends on the offer price. It depends on close. So we can't give you a tangible number, but we can tell you the best practices. Bonuses are going to help incentivize a specific behavior. So show rates, like you discussed, pay in fulls, number of meetings taken. So if you hit 30 meetings, for example, you give a bonus to the setters. But those are really, really good points. And I think we're wrapping up at time here.
And one last thing just before we wrap up. When it comes to bonuses, one thing you want to be very careful of is you don't want to make your bonuses too extreme. Because the second you do that, you're actually not incentivizing that behavior anymore. You're forcing that closer or setter to ignore everything else and only focus on that behavior. So you want to be very careful of how extreme the bonuses are, because if you start paying insane bonuses for show rate, for example, they're going to sacrifice intent, right, when they're qualifying intent, and just force people to show up on calls. So you want to be mindful of that as well.
It's a very good point. It's a very good point. But anyway, if you want a more specific, tailored comp structures and comp plans, you can always reach out to the sponsors, VC Growth, book a call with them, learn more about what they have to offer, see if they can help you. Again, they being us, we'd love to know more if we can help you scale your offer. And I think that wraps up this episode. We discussed a lot from hiring setters best practices, hiring closers best practices, what to look for and how early to hire them in advance, as well as comp plans. So I hope this episode was beneficial. It was a bit more kind of in-depth, more tactical, and we'll see you in the next one.